It began with a single announcement, a sentence so startling that it rippled through the halls of Buckingham Palace, across the UK, and into living rooms around the world. People paused mid-sentence, phones were frozen in hands, televisions flickered with disbelief. What had Prince William said? How could words spoken by the future king provoke such a seismic reaction? The truth is, few could have anticipated the magnitude of this statement, a statement that didn't just shock the public. It threatened to redefine the very structure of one of the most scrutinized royal families in history. But before we continue, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for updates. Imagine waking up to the news that a family member, someone you trusted implicitly, had made a decision that could rewrite your destiny overnight. That was the reality for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Their inheritance, the financial security and symbolic support they once assumed was guaranteed, was suddenly in question. And the person at the center of this storm? Prince William, the elder brother, the heir apparent, a man known for his stoic public demeanor and careful diplomacy. But that day, William had broken from the expected script. He had spoken, and the words he chose would send shockwaves far beyond the palace gates. The UK, a nation that has long balanced reverence for the monarchy with an appetite for scandal, found itself captivated. Newspapers raced to print the story. Online, debates erupted. Social media ignited with speculation, memes, and outrage. William cuts off Harry and Meghan's inheritance. Is the royal family fractured beyond repair? These questions weren't mere clickbait. They were genuine expressions of bewilderment and concern. For the first time in decades, the monarchy appeared vulnerable, human, and intensely dramatic in the eyes of the public. But let's rewind. To understand the gravity of what William said, one must understand the stakes. The British royal family is not merely a symbol. It is a web of tradition, privilege, and expectation. Every gesture, every word, every silence carries meaning. Inheritance is more than money. It is power, status, and continuity. To revoke an inheritance is to make a statement about trust, loyalty, and family dynamics. It is a public act with private consequences, a calculated move that reshapes relationships and rewrites histories. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, meanwhile, were already navigating a complex landscape. Their exit from senior royal duties had been controversial. Their candid interviews, legal battles with the press, and charitable ventures had both won them admiration and earned them criticism. Yet, even amidst the scrutiny, they had likely believed that their familial bonds and entitlements would remain intact. William's statement shattered that illusion. Suddenly, they faced not just the external pressures of the public and media, but an internal reckoning. How to respond to a brother's unprecedented move, a gesture that was both financial and symbolic in its magnitude. The day the announcement broke, the atmosphere in London was electric with tension. Reporters camped outside the palace, watching for any sign of movement. Couriers rushed with morning editions, each headline more sensational than the last. Yet inside Buckingham Palace, the situation was infinitely more complex. Private meetings, hushed conversations, and strategic deliberations unfolded behind closed doors. Insiders whispered of long-standing resentments and unresolved conflicts. Some claimed the statement was inevitable, a culmination of years of subtle, simmering tension between the brothers. Others insisted it was a sudden, impulsive decision, the result of a specific trigger, an event, an interview, a perceived betrayal, that had pushed William over the edge. The public reaction was, predictably, polarizing. Supporters of the monarchy lauded William's firmness, framing it as a necessary assertion of authority, a way to preserve the dignity and continuity of the institution. Critics, however, viewed the act as cold, calculated, and almost cruel, a family rift displayed in the harshest terms on a global stage. Social media exploded with hashtags, memes, and commentary, each post fueling a debate about morality, duty, and the human side of the monarchy. For ordinary citizens, this was more than gossip. It was a window into the intimate struggles of a family that had for centuries been shrouded in ceremony, protocol, and untouchable mystique. So why does this matter now? Why is this story not just another royal headline destined to fade with the week? Because the ramifications are profound and ongoing. This is not a story of past scandals or historical precedent. It is happening in real time. Every public appearance, every media interaction, every charitable initiative undertaken by Harry, Meghan, or William is now seen through the lens of this fracture. The balance of power, the perception of loyalty, the public's trust in the monarchy, all are affected. And as the global media continues to dissect every word, gesture, and facial expression, the world watches, captivated by a drama that blends tradition, modernity, family, and empire. Yet even as the story spread, the details remained tantalizingly incomplete. What exactly had William said? How irrevocable was the inheritance cancellation? Were there back channels, private conversations, or conditions that could alter the outcome? These questions lingered in the public imagination, creating a curiosity gap, that left people glued to screens, desperate for answers. And it is precisely this uncertainty, this tension, that makes the story irresistible. Because human beings are drawn to narrative, to suspense, to the unraveling of secrets. And Buckingham Palace, for the first time in decades, had delivered a story that was equal parts shocking, emotional, and deeply human. Let's pause for a moment to consider the human element. Behind the headlines, beyond the cameras and microphones, this is a story of brothers and sisters-in-law, of trust and betrayal, of love and disappointment. Prince William, carrying the weight of future kingship, made a decision that forced a confrontation not with abstract ideas, but with family. Harry and Meghan, navigating the dual worlds of public scrutiny and personal ambition, faced the stark reality of what happens when privilege and expectation collide with human emotion. And in the background, the monarchy as an institution wrestled with its own survival, image, and legacy. And yet, there is more to the story than just a single statement and a revoked inheritance. Because what William did was not simply about punishment or control. It was, in many ways, a message, a signal to the world, to the family, and to history itself. It was a line drawn, a boundary set, a test of loyalty, resolve, and character. And the consequences of that message, both immediate and long-term, are far-reaching, touching finances, public perception, personal relationships, and the very identity of a family that is both loved and scrutinized by millions. So as we begin this journey into the heart of one of the most dramatic royal developments of our time, consider this. Nothing is as it seems. Every gesture carries meaning, and the truth is layered beneath decades of tradition, media speculation, and private emotion. The narrative is unfolding, chapter by chapter, revelation by revelation. And while we will explore the facts, the reactions, and the secrets behind the headlines, the ultimate story is one of human complexity, of loyalty and betrayal, of power and consequence. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. It was a morning like any other, or so it seemed. London streets buzzed with commuters, cafes filled with the hum of conversation, and newspapers lined the stands, boasting headlines about politics, sports, and entertainment. And then, suddenly, everything changed. A single statement, delivered by Prince William, shattered the ordinary calm and thrust the entire nation into a state of disbelief. It was more than news. It was a seismic event, an announcement that would ripple through every corner of the United Kingdom and across the world. The statement itself was brief but devastating. In measured tones, William addressed the public, the press, and, indirectly, his own family. The words were chosen carefully, each one weighted with intention, yet the impact was immediate. The inheritance of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had been cancelled. The reaction was instantaneous. Journalists froze mid-sentence, editors scrambled to update headlines, and citizens everywhere stared at screens in a mixture of shock, confusion, and outrage. How could this happen? What had led to such a dramatic decision? And more importantly, what did it mean for the future of the royal family? Inside Buckingham Palace, the atmosphere was tense. Palace aides whispered in corridors, strategists convened in dimly lit rooms, and senior staff worked tirelessly to manage the fallout. The announcement had not just been a public act. It had been a calculated message, signaling authority, setting boundaries, and asserting control. For those who understood the intricate protocols of the monarchy, the implications were profound. Canceling an inheritance was not merely a financial move. It was a statement about loyalty, trust, and power. Outside the palace, the media frenzy was relentless. Reporters, eager to capture every nuance, descended upon royal estates and public appearances. Live broadcasts interrupted regular programming. Social media platforms exploded with hashtags and debates, and opinion columns were written at a feverish pace. The public consumed every detail with insatiable curiosity. Some praised William's firmness, framing it as necessary to maintain the dignity and integrity of the monarchy. Others decried it as harsh, cold, and almost cruel, a family rift laid bare for the world to scrutinize. To understand the gravity of William's statement, one must consider the broader context. The royal family is not just a family. It is a symbol, an institution, and a global brand. Every action is scrutinized, every gesture analyzed, and every word interpreted. In this environment, canceling an inheritance is far more than a legal or financial maneuver. It is a public declaration of judgment and a recalibration of power within one of the most visible families in the world. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were, unsurprisingly, deeply affected. Though they had long navigated public scrutiny and media speculation, the revocation of their inheritance introduced a new dimension of tension. Private sources later described a range of reactions, from shock to disbelief, from sorrow to anger. Harry, known for his candor and willingness to speak openly, reportedly struggled with the implications. Meghan, equally resilient, faced not only the personal betrayal but the public spectacle of their family conflict. Their response was, in many ways, a balancing act, maintaining dignity, protecting privacy, and managing the intense scrutiny of a global audience. What made the announcement even more remarkable was the timing. It coincided with a period of heightened visibility for the royal family. Public appearances, charitable initiatives, and media coverage were at their peak. William's decision, therefore, was not made in isolation. It was a deliberate, high-stakes intervention designed to send a clear message. Those close to the family noted that the choice of timing was strategic. By making the announcement at a moment of maximum visibility, William ensured that the implications would be understood not just privately, but globally. The statement also revealed deeper fractures within the royal family. For years, insiders had hinted at tensions between William and Harry, between traditional expectations and modern ambitions, between public duty and personal freedom. While the brothers had shared moments of camaraderie and mutual support, there were underlying strains, differences in perspective, disagreements over public behavior, and disputes over loyalty and discretion. The inheritance cancellation was, in essence, the culmination of these tensions, a visible manifestation of unresolved conflicts that had simmered for years. Reaction from the public was immediate and intense. Social media platforms became arenas of debate, with hashtags trending worldwide. Hashtag William Cuts Harry and hashtag Royal Feud dominated timelines as citizens expressed a spectrum of emotions: outrage, empathy, disbelief, and fascination. Commentators dissected every word of the statement, every inflection of William's voice, and every historical precedent. Memes emerged, blending humor with commentary, while opinion pieces debated morality, duty, and the human consequences of such a bold action. Meanwhile, within royal circles, speculation was rampant. Some insiders suggested that the decision was preemptive, a protective measure to safeguard the monarchy from future controversies. Others believed it was reactive, a response to specific actions by Harry and Meghan that were deemed unacceptable. Regardless of the motivation, the effect was undeniable. William had reasserted his authority in a manner that was both public and irreversible. The financial implications were equally significant. Royal inheritances are not merely symbolic. They provide access to resources, estates, and opportunities that underpin public and private endeavors. For Harry and Meghan, the cancellation of their inheritance represented not just a personal loss, but a redefinition of their position within the royal family. Analysts speculated on how this would impact their philanthropic projects, public engagements, and lifestyle choices. Some suggested that it might spur new independence, while others predicted increased tension and potential legal disputes. Yet beyond the financial and procedural consequences, the human element was perhaps the most compelling. Families argue. Brothers clash. Loyalty is tested. But rarely do such conflicts unfold on a stage visible to millions worldwide. William's statement forced Harry and Meghan into a position that was both intensely personal and profoundly public. Their reactions, private and yet inevitably scrutinized, would shape the narrative in ways that no media release or press conference could fully capture. The unfolding drama also highlighted the delicate balance between tradition and modernity. The monarchy, steeped in centuries of protocol, is expected to maintain dignity, discretion, and continuity. At the same time, its members live in an era of unprecedented transparency and scrutiny. William's statement, therefore, can be seen as an attempt to navigate these competing pressures, asserting authority and preserving tradition while responding to the realities of modern media, public engagement, and familial complexity. As the day progressed, the story continued to evolve. Experts were called to comment, palace insiders provided anonymous briefings, and public opinion shifted with every revelation. Questions arose. Could Harry and Meghan challenge the decision legally? Would there be a private reconciliation? How would this affect the public perception of the monarchy, particularly among younger generations accustomed to transparency and authenticity? Each new development intensified the intrigue, ensuring that the nation remained captivated. And yet, despite the coverage, much remained unknown. The reasons behind William's statement, the conversations that led up to it, and the private deliberations within the palace were shrouded in secrecy. Speculation was rampant. Was this the result of long-standing resentment, a protective maneuver for the future of the monarchy, or a deeply personal response to perceived betrayal? The answers were hidden behind closed doors, leaving the public to piece together fragments and clues from public appearances, media reports, and historical context. What made the statement particularly unforgettable was its emotional resonance. It was not simply an administrative decision or a financial adjustment. It was an act charged with meaning. It conveyed disappointment, frustration, and determination. It sent a message not only to Harry and Meghan but to the world. The royal family, for all its history and pomp, is composed of real people capable of making difficult, even painful, choices. As evening fell across London, the reverberations of the statement continued. Television stations provided rolling coverage. Online discussions showed no signs of abating, and the public grappled with the implications. William, steadfast in his role as future king, had made a move that was strategic, symbolic, and undeniably dramatic. Harry and Meghan, meanwhile, faced a moment of reckoning, one that would test their resilience, relationships, and future trajectory. And yet, even as the nation tried to process the announcement, insiders hinted that this was only the beginning. Behind the scenes, meetings continued, plans were being laid, and further revelations were waiting to emerge. The inheritance cancellation was not an isolated event. It was part of a larger, unfolding drama, one that would continue to captivate, shock, and surprise the public in ways that no one could have predicted. But what came next would change everything. And no one saw it coming. Few people outside the palace walls could truly grasp what drove Prince William to take such a drastic, unprecedented step. To the public, the decision to cancel Harry and Meghan's inheritance might have seemed straightforward, a matter of discipline, of safeguarding the monarchy, or of asserting authority. But beneath the polished statements and media narratives lay a complex web of emotions, history, and family dynamics, a labyrinth of motives that only someone intimately familiar with royal life could begin to understand. The first question to ask is simple. Why now? Why at this moment? Amid an already tense media environment and a family under constant scrutiny, would William choose to make such a dramatic declaration? To answer this, one must consider the unique pressures of being the heir apparent. William was not simply a brother or a cousin. He was the future king, tasked with preserving the legacy of the monarchy, protecting its reputation, and maintaining continuity in an era where every misstep is amplified by global attention. Every action he took was measured against centuries of tradition, centuries of expectation, and the unrelenting gaze of the public. From William's perspective, the decision to revoke the inheritance may have been as much about principle as it was about power. There is a long-standing notion within royal circles that certain lines, once crossed, cannot be tolerated. Allegiance, loyalty, and discretion are not merely familial virtues. They are essential to the survival of the institution. When those lines are perceived to have been breached, decisive action becomes necessary. And in William's mind, the inheritance was more than money. It was a tangible expression of trust, a symbol of continuity and family cohesion. To rescind it was to draw a boundary, to signal that certain behaviors have consequences, and to protect the institution from risks both internal and external. Yet William's motives were not purely strategic. They were intensely personal. The relationship between brothers, though often idealized in public narratives, is layered with rivalry, shared history, and complex emotional entanglements. William and Harry grew up under extraordinary circumstances, their childhoods shaped by intense media scrutiny, the tragic loss of their mother, and the weight of royal expectation. For years, William had been groomed to assume the throne, to embody the continuity of the monarchy, while Harry navigated a more tumultuous path, balancing public duty with personal expression. Their journeys, while parallel, were divergent, and those divergences created friction. Insiders suggest that William's decision was influenced by a growing perception that Harry and Meghan's actions threatened the stability and image of the royal family. From public interviews that aired sensitive family dynamics to media engagements that portrayed the monarchy in a contentious light, William may have interpreted these actions as a breach of trust, a disregard for tradition, and a challenge to his own role as future king. In his view, the inheritance was not just a financial asset. It was leverage, a reminder of shared responsibility, and a measure of familial loyalty. By withdrawing it, William was asserting that certain lines could not be crossed, even by those closest to him. Yet there was also a psychological dimension to this decision. Power within the royal family is not solely dictated by position. It is reinforced by perception, respect, and the ability to command loyalty. William, conscious of his future role, may have felt compelled to demonstrate decisiveness and control, both to the family and to the public. In a sense, the statement was an exercise in authority, a declaration that while he bore the weight of history and expectation, he would not be swayed by sentiment alone. It was a calculated blend of duty and emotion, strategy and personal conviction. Some observers argue that William's motives were also influenced by a desire to protect his own children and the next generation of royals. The notion of inheritance, both symbolic and material, is inherently tied to legacy. By making a clear, public decision about Harry and Meghan, William was sending a message not only about boundaries, but also about the values he intended to uphold for his own family. The implications were profound. The statement was as much about the future of the monarchy as it was about the present conflict. But motives, as always, are layered. There was undoubtedly an element of frustration and exhaustion at play. Years of tension, misunderstandings, and divergent paths had built up quietly beneath the polished surfaces of royal appearances. While the public may have perceived these interactions as cordial or routine, insiders hinted at simmering resentments, unspoken grievances, and emotional friction that had accumulated over time. The inheritance cancellation, then, was not an impulsive act but the culmination of long-standing pressures, a release of pent-up emotion masked by the veneer of protocol and responsibility. Humor and irony, oddly enough, also played a role in the calculus. The monarchy exists within a framework of rigid expectations, yet it is constantly interacting with a modern, media-saturated world. Every decision carries symbolic weight, and William was acutely aware that any public display of leniency might be interpreted as weakness, while any overreaction could be seen as vindictive. Striking this balance requires a mix of strategic calculation and human intuition. In essence, William's statement was designed to communicate firmness while maintaining dignity, a challenging line to walk in a world that thrives on sensationalism. Direct questions linger in the air. Did William anticipate the full public reaction? Did he consider the emotional toll on Harry and Meghan? To what extent was this an act of protection versus a demonstration of control? The answers are not entirely clear, even to those closest to him. What is evident, however, is that the statement was not an isolated decision. It was embedded within a complex network of family dynamics, media strategy, historical precedent, and personal conviction. Consider, for a moment, the broader implications of motive in the context of power. In any high-stakes environment, decisions are rarely singular. They are shaped by history, personality, context, and consequence. William's move reflects this multifaceted reality. On one level, it is an assertion of authority, a protective measure, and a reinforcement of tradition. On another, it is deeply personal, tied to the emotions, loyalties, and unresolved tensions that exist within every family, no matter how public or powerful. And yet, even as analysts and insiders attempted to parse these motives, a sense of unpredictability hung over the situation. Families are dynamic systems, and the royal family, despite its centuries of protocol, is no exception. Every decision triggers responses, reactions, and counteractions. By revoking the inheritance, William had initiated a chain of events that would affect relationships, public perception, and potentially the future trajectory of the monarchy itself. The motives, while rooted in history and principle, could not fully predict the consequences, leaving the public and the palace alike on edge. The statement also served as a mirror, reflecting not only William's intentions but the broader themes of loyalty, responsibility, and familial obligation. What does it mean to be a brother, a son, or a future king? How do personal feelings intersect with public duty? In canceling Harry and Meghan's inheritance, William was, in essence, navigating these questions in real time, balancing the private realm of family emotion with the public sphere of national expectation. Yet, even with all this analysis, one cannot ignore the element of suspense and drama that permeates the situation. For every reason, every motive, every strategic calculation, there exists an unknown. How will Harry and Meghan respond? How will the public interpret these actions? And most importantly, what happens next within the palace, behind doors closed to the media and the public? Each unanswered question intensifies the intrigue, creating a story that is not just about money or protocol, but about human emotion, ambition, and the complex bonds that tie family together. In this context, William's hidden motives are both illuminating and confounding. They reveal a man who is protective, strategic, and deeply concerned with legacy. They also expose the vulnerability inherent in power, the weight of responsibility, and the delicate balance between personal loyalty and institutional duty. Understanding these motives is not merely an academic exercise. It is essential to grasping the stakes, the consequences, and the emotional intensity of the unfolding drama. But motives, no matter how carefully considered, do not exist in a vacuum. They interact with perception, reaction, and circumstance. As the public absorbed the news, as media outlets debated the implications, and as Harry and Meghan processed the personal and financial consequences, the drama escalated. William's intentions were clear, but the outcome remained uncertain. Every move, every word, every response had the potential to alter the narrative in profound ways. And just when it seemed that the story had reached a plateau of tension, new developments began to emerge. Leaks from insiders, subtle hints in media interviews, and subtle shifts in public discourse. Each revelation added layers to the already complex portrait of William's motives, suggesting that even those closest to him could not fully anticipate the cascading consequences of this bold, unprecedented move. But what came next would expose secrets even deeper than anyone imagined. And it would challenge not only family bonds but the very essence of trust within the monarchy. When news broke that Prince William had canceled Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's inheritance, a wave of confusion and speculation washed over the public. To many, it seemed almost inconceivable. Inheritance in the royal family is more than wealth. It is legacy, security, and a signal of status within the centuries-old institution. But what exactly does an inheritance from the royal family entail, and why would its cancellation provoke such a dramatic response? To answer this, we must delve into the history, rules, and traditions surrounding royal inheritance and uncover why William's decision was far more than a financial maneuver. it was a statement that shook the monarchy to its core. Inheritance within the British royal family is governed by a combination of historical precedent, legal frameworks, and internal protocols. Unlike ordinary estates, which follow wills and standard legal procedures, royal inheritance is deeply intertwined with duty, titles, and the management of property. Large estates, such as Sandringham and Balmoral, are not merely homes. They are symbols of continuity, assets generating revenue, and a part of the royal legacy. Financial arrangements, while substantial, are often less transparent to the public than they are to those within royal circles. This opacity has allowed rumors, speculation, and occasional myths to flourish in the media, which made William's announcement all the more shocking. Historically, inheritance in the royal family has served multiple purposes. It ensures that members of the family have the resources to maintain their public roles and charitable activities. It reinforces social hierarchy and familial duty, and it acts as a method of preserving continuity across generations. The transfer of wealth is not simply about comfort, it is about obligation. Receiving an inheritance carries with it an expectation to honor the family name, to support the monarchy, and to uphold the responsibilities that come with privilege. In the case of Harry and Meghan, their inheritance was reportedly significant, encompassing both financial assets and potential interests in estates or family trusts. While exact figures are closely guarded, estimates suggest that the value would have supported their lifestyle and charitable endeavors for decades. Beyond the monetary aspect, however, the inheritance was a symbolic affirmation, a gesture of trust, acceptance, and inclusion within the broader framework of the royal family. To revoke it was to send a message that extended far beyond money. It signaled disapproval, disappointment, and a realignment of familial and institutional boundaries. The legal mechanisms surrounding inheritance in the royal family are equally complex. Some assets are entailed, meaning they are passed down according to strict historical stipulations and cannot be freely redistributed. Others are held in trusts, which allow for a degree of discretion but are still guided by long-standing rules and fiduciary responsibilities. By canceling Harry and Meghan's inheritance, William was exercising a combination of legal authority and personal discretion, a power that is unusual, particularly because such moves are rarely publicized. This transparency amplified the shock, as the public rarely witnesses such intimate, consequential decisions revealed on a global stage. To understand the gravity of the situation, it is important to recognize that inheritance in the royal family is as much about perception as it is about assets. Accepting an inheritance is a public affirmation of loyalty and trust. Revoking it is a symbolic rebuke. In the context of William's statement, the cancellation represented a deliberate recalibration of family dynamics. It was an unmistakable signal to Harry and Meghan that certain lines, whether ethical, emotional, or procedural, had been crossed. It was a boundary set not just in financial terms, but in terms of allegiance and responsibility. Adding complexity to the controversy is the intertwined history of the brothers. Harry's departure from senior royal duties, combined with Meghan's public media engagements and interviews, had already strained familial relationships. Critics argue that William's move was a natural escalation, a means of asserting authority and preserving the monarchy's image. Supporters, however, contend that the act was harsh, disproportionately punitive, and emblematic of a family divided by ego and misunderstanding. This tension between duty and emotion, tradition and modernity, underscores the intricate dynamics of royal inheritance and the symbolic weight it carries. Public fascination with the inheritance cancellation also stems from the human dimension. While royal finances can appear abstract or distant, the decision touches upon universal themes: trust, loyalty, and the consequences of personal actions. Families everywhere understand the pain of disapproval, the sting of lost support, and the weight of expectations. By framing the inheritance cancellation as both a legal and emotional event, William's statement resonated far beyond the palace walls. The public could empathize, speculate, and debate, blending curiosity with emotional engagement, a perfect storm for global attention. The financial implications, while significant, were only one layer of the story. Removing access to an inheritance impacts not just personal wealth, but also the capacity to pursue long-term projects, philanthropic initiatives, and public engagements. Harry and Meghan, known for their charitable efforts and public initiatives, suddenly faced a recalibrated set of resources and opportunities. Observers speculated about how this would influence their work, their lifestyle, and their engagement with both the UK and international communities. Could they adapt? Would they respond publicly or privately? Every question added suspense, fueling further interest and debate. Beyond the practical and emotional implications, the inheritance controversy exposed contradictions within the monarchy itself. On one hand, the royal family is built upon tradition, hierarchy, and continuity. On the other, it exists in a modern world of media transparency, social scrutiny, and personal agency. William's cancellation highlighted this tension, demonstrating how a single decision could simultaneously honor tradition, assert control, and spark controversy. It was a microcosm of the challenges facing a monarchy in the 21st century, a delicate balance between protocol and perception, private family dynamics, and public scrutiny. Moreover, the decision sparked debate about fairness, privilege, and generational responsibility. Some argued that William, as the heir, was within his rights to make such a move, protecting the monarchy and sending a message about accountability. Others questioned whether it was morally justifiable to revoke an inheritance based on personal disagreements or perceived slights. These debates, while rooted in the specifics of royal life, touched on universal themes. The tension between authority and compassion, the complexities of familial obligation, and the enduring question of how wealth and power intersect with human relationships. Insiders revealed that discussions about inheritance had been ongoing behind palace doors for months, if not years. Meetings with advisors, legal consultations, and strategic planning sessions were said to have shaped the final decision. Far from being an impulsive act, the cancellation reflected careful consideration of precedent, risk, and consequence. Even so, the public disclosure added an unprecedented layer of drama. By making the decision known to the world, William magnified the stakes and ensured that the consequences would unfold in the harsh glare of global attention. As the debate raged in newspapers, online forums, and living rooms across the UK, a broader narrative began to emerge. Inheritance in the royal family is never just about money. It is about power, symbolism, and relationships. It is about defining roles, asserting authority, and clarifying boundaries. And when these elements intersect with personal emotion, public scrutiny, and family tension, the result can be explosive. William's statement did more than cancel an inheritance. It triggered a cascade of questions, suspicions, and emotional responses that would dominate headlines and conversations for months to come. Yet, even amid this storm, there remained an air of mystery. The specific terms of the inheritance, the legal frameworks, and the private conversations that led to the cancellation were largely unknown to the public. Speculation ran rampant. Some suggested that Harry and Meghan might challenge the decision legally, invoking trusts or family agreements. Others predicted a quiet, private reconciliation, perhaps mediated by senior royals. But no matter the outcome, the announcement had already left an indelible mark on the monarchy, shaping perceptions, influencing behavior, and redefining family dynamics. The inheritance controversy also illuminated a central paradox of the royal family, the coexistence of immense privilege with intense expectation. Wealth, status, and access to historic estates come with responsibilities that are seldom visible to the public eye. Every gesture is scrutinized, every decision magnified. In this light, William's cancellation can be seen as both a protective measure and a calculated assertion of authority, a move designed to safeguard not only assets but the reputation, stability, and continuity of the institution itself. And as the world watched, the story continued to unfold. The inheritance cancellation was only one chapter in a much larger narrative, one that encompassed personal relationships, media scrutiny, historical precedent, and public opinion. Every subsequent interview, public appearance, and media report would be filtered through the lens of this decision, shaping perceptions and influencing reactions in ways that were impossible to fully predict. But what came next would reveal layers of the inheritance controversy that no one had anticipated. And it would force Harry and Meghan to confront challenges far beyond the financial, striking at the heart of family, trust, and identity. The news hit like a thunderclap. For Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the cancellation of their inheritance was more than a financial blow. It was an emotional earthquake, shaking the foundations of trust, family, and security. While the public saw a polished couple accustomed to media scrutiny, the reality behind closed doors was raw, human, and intensely private. How do you process such a moment when your family, the very people you expect to support you, have taken a step that alters your future overnight? This is the story of their reaction, a mix of disbelief, sorrow, and defiance, unfolding in a way that would captivate the world. When the announcement first reached them, sources suggest Harry and Meghan were in their home, away from the immediate bustle of London. The news arrived not in a gentle conversation, but through the media. Headlines blaring across television screens, notifications pinging on phones, and social media exploding with speculation. It was impersonal, public, and humiliating, a stark reminder that their lives, though steeped in privilege, were constantly observed and dissected. The initial reaction was shock. Harry, protective and impulsive, reportedly paced, attempting to reconcile the severity of the situation with the long-standing bond he believed existed between him and his brother. Meghan, ever composed in public, faced a private storm, wrestling with the dual challenges of emotional betrayal and maintaining a poised front. But shock quickly gave way to a more complex cocktail of emotions. There was anger at the public exposure, at what felt like a punitive measure, at the sudden severing of a trust long assumed. There was hurt, a deep, personal wound, not simply over finances, but over the perceived betrayal of familial loyalty. And there was disbelief. How could a relationship that had weathered so much, that had survived constant media scrutiny, be fractured in such a dramatic, irrevocable way? Each emotion compounded the other, creating a tension that would simmer for weeks, influencing every interaction, every decision, every public statement. The couple's response was strategic, yet deeply human. They understood the public's gaze, the inevitability of speculation, and the weight of global attention. In private, however, they were navigating grief, frustration, and uncertainty. Conversations reportedly stretched late into the night, weighing options, considering implications, and planning responses. Harry's protective instincts, honed through years of public life and personal loss, drove him to consider not only the immediate emotional consequences, but also the broader ramifications for their family and their public roles. Meghan, equally resolute, balanced empathy with determination, weighing the personal and professional stakes of this familial rupture. Insiders suggest that the couple's reaction also included a measure of defiance. Though hurt and unsettled, they were unwilling to be passive recipients of William's decision. There was a sense that, while the inheritance had been revoked, their future was not predetermined by this act. Whether through charitable work, public speaking, or media engagement, Harry and Meghan began to consider ways to assert independence, maintain influence, and protect their legacy. This defiance, however measured, hinted at a deeper strategy: to navigate the personal pain while demonstrating resilience in the public eye, a delicate balancing act in a world where every action is scrutinized. The emotional intensity of their reaction cannot be overstated. This was not merely a disagreement over money. It was a confrontation with trust, loyalty, and the expectations of family. For Harry, whose relationship with William had long been framed by both affection and rivalry, the moment was profoundly disorienting. For Meghan, who had already faced intense media scrutiny and public judgment, it was a reaffirmation of the challenges inherent in marrying into a family whose private dynamics are magnified for the world to see. Together, they faced a convergence of personal grief, public exposure, and strategic calculation, a rare and intense crucible of emotion. Yet amidst the turmoil, there were glimmers of perspective and pragmatism. Friends and confidants reportedly advised the couple to focus on what they could control: their projects, their charitable endeavors, and their public engagement, rather than dwell solely on the loss or the perceived betrayal. In this way, their reaction was both human and calculated, blending immediate emotional response with longer-term strategic thinking. They understood that in the age of media scrutiny, every reaction would be interpreted, analyzed, and debated. Every gesture, facial expression, or public comment could be dissected for meaning. Despite this awareness, the personal toll was undeniable. Reports describe quiet moments of reflection, private conversations laden with emotion, and the intense pressure of managing grief while maintaining composure. The inheritance cancellation was a blow not only to material security, but to trust. The implicit understanding that family stands by one another in times of difficulty. Its revocation represented a rupture, one that would reverberate through private conversations and public appearances alike. Adding to the complexity was the couple's public image. Harry and Meghan had cultivated a persona of resilience, empathy, and advocacy. The inheritance issue, however, threatened to disrupt this carefully managed narrative, placing them in a position where personal pain collided with public perception. The tension between authenticity and public expectation became a central part of their response, requiring careful navigation to avoid being portrayed as either victims or aggressors in a conflict that was deeply personal yet undeniably public. The broader context of their reaction also included consideration of media strategy. Every statement, interview, and public appearance had to be weighed carefully. How would the public interpret silence? Would a direct response fuel further controversy? How could they assert independence without escalating familial tension? These questions dominated internal discussions, reflecting the unique pressures faced by individuals whose lives are lived in an arena where personal and public intersect at every moment. Friends close to the couple noted that their reaction included moments of vulnerability rarely seen by the public. Tears, frustration, and candid conversations revealed the depth of the emotional impact. Yet these moments were balanced with resilience, determination, and strategic clarity. Harry and Meghan were confronted with a challenge that combined personal betrayal with public scrutiny, and their response reflected an understanding of both. They were grieving, yes, but they were also planning, adapting, and preparing for the next phase of a story that was far from over. The ripple effects of their reaction were immediate. Supporters rallied online, offering solidarity and framing the couple as victims of unfair treatment. Critics debated motives, ethics, and the fairness of William's decision. The media, sensing an unfolding drama, intensified coverage, drawing on historical context, expert analysis, and speculative insight. Every new development added layers to the narrative, each feeding public curiosity while deepening the emotional complexity of the situation. What made this moment particularly intense was the intersection of past and present. Harry's experiences, shaped by childhood scrutiny, personal loss, and public expectation, collided with Meghan's journey navigating a complex and often critical media landscape. The inheritance cancellation forced them to confront these challenges simultaneously, blending past traumas with present dilemmas and future uncertainty. Their reaction, therefore, was not a single moment but a process, evolving as new information, advice, and perspectives emerged. Even as they considered their next steps, a larger question loomed. How would this affect their relationship with William, the institution of the monarchy, and the public? The answer was uncertain. Every option carried risk, every choice potential consequence. The inheritance cancellation had altered the playing field, creating new dynamics that would shape interactions, influence media narratives, and affect both personal and institutional relationships for years to come. And yet, in the midst of uncertainty and emotional intensity, Harry and Meghan were not powerless. Their reaction, combining resilience, strategy, and emotional depth, hinted at a capacity to adapt, to respond, and to assert agency even in the face of what felt like betrayal. They were navigating a complex landscape, one in which personal emotion and public scrutiny intersected, and they were doing so with a blend of intelligence, courage, and resolve. But what came next would force them to confront consequences far beyond their immediate understanding. Consequences that would not only redefine their relationship with William, but also reshape public perception and the very future of their role within the monarchy. The moment Prince William's statement hit the public, the media erupted. What began as a handful of breaking news headlines quickly escalated into a full-blown global phenomenon. Newspapers, television networks, and social media platforms converged to cover every angle, dissect every word, and speculate on the private dynamics behind the public announcement. For Harry and Meghan, this media storm amplified an already intense personal crisis, turning an internal family decision into a spectacle of worldwide scrutiny. Within hours, the UK press had mobilized. Journalists camped outside royal residences, hoping for glimpses of reaction, while editors raced to update headlines with the latest developments. Royal rift widens. William cuts off Harry and Meghan, blared across front pages. TV anchors repeated the statement verbatim, analyzing tone, timing, and implication. Opinion columns flourished, some framing William's action as necessary for the monarchy's survival, others as a cruel and public family betrayal. Every outlet sought to provide context, using historical precedent, expert commentary, and insider accounts to draw readers into the unfolding narrative. Social media became an even more explosive arena. Platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok overflowed with speculation, memes, and analysis. Hashtags such as #RoyalRift, #William vs. Harry, and #Inheritance Shock trended globally. Every post, video, or thread was dissected for meaning, as the public attempted to interpret private family dynamics through snippets of information and carefully chosen quotes. Analysts noted that the viral nature of the coverage had less to do with the financial aspect and more with the human drama, the betrayal, the loyalty, the emotional stakes that made millions feel like they were witnessing a family in crisis firsthand. The speed of the media storm was unprecedented. Within hours, stories crossed continents, and international media picked up the narrative, projecting it onto global audiences. News outlets in the United States, Europe, and Asia dissected the event with the same intensity as UK outlets. The story became more than a family dispute. It became a case study in modern celebrity, media influence, and the interplay between private decisions and public perception. Commentators debated whether William's move was calculated or emotional, fair or excessive, and they explored potential repercussions for the monarchy's global image. The media storm did more than report. It shaped perception. Every broadcast, article, and online discussion reinforced the gravity of the situation, emphasizing tension, drama, and uncertainty. Pundits speculated about the psychological impact on Harry and Meghan, suggesting that the revocation of inheritance could trigger public statements, legal challenges, or further estrangement. Every report added layers to the narrative, leaving audiences hooked and eager for the next revelation. Within this whirlwind, misinformation and speculation flourished. Anonymous sources, unnamed insiders, and leaked documents became central to media narratives, often blurring the line between fact and conjecture. Some outlets suggested that William's decision had been in the works for years, while others portrayed it as a sudden reaction to recent interviews or perceived betrayals. Social media amplified these narratives, with millions of users discussing every possibility and theorizing about hidden motives, secret conversations, and future conflicts. The media storm also had a profound emotional impact on Harry and Meghan. Already reeling from the personal blow of losing the inheritance, they now faced a barrage of public scrutiny. Every reaction, anger, sadness, or even silence, was interpreted, debated, and often misrepresented. The couple had to navigate a landscape where personal grief collided with global visibility, creating a pressure cooker environment that few outside the palace could truly understand. Friends reportedly advised them to remain composed publicly while managing their response privately, but in reality, the emotional strain was enormous. Analysts also highlighted the strategic aspect of the media coverage. William's announcement had been public, meaning the palace could not control the narrative entirely. By broadcasting the decision indirectly through the press, the situation was framed as a matter of principle and authority, yet it left room for speculation, interpretation, and debate. The media storm amplified this ambiguity, ensuring that public curiosity remained high and that the story would dominate headlines for weeks. The media storm had ripple effects beyond reporting and analysis. It influenced public opinion, fueled debate over monarchy, family, and wealth, and shaped how audiences viewed the individuals involved. Polls conducted in the aftermath suggested that public sentiment was divided. Some supported William's firmness, while others sympathized with Harry and Meghan's plight. The coverage highlighted generational differences, as younger audiences often questioned the fairness and relevance of traditional royal expectations, while older demographics emphasized duty, loyalty, and historical precedent. Even within the palace, the storm was intensely felt. Advisors, public relations experts, and family members worked tirelessly to manage both internal and external perception. Every press statement, media briefing, and official engagement was analyzed for its potential to either calm or inflame the situation. The decision to cancel the inheritance, though legally sound, had become a public spectacle, requiring constant management, strategic messaging, and careful coordination. In the midst of the chaos, the story evolved continuously. New angles emerged. Legal experts speculated about trust laws and inheritance rights. Biographers offered historical comparisons, and former aides provided insight into family dynamics. Each development added depth to the narrative, ensuring that audiences remained engaged and invested. The media storm, rather than simply reporting the facts, created a living, breathing drama that unfolded in real time, blending personal betrayal, public duty, and global spectacle. The emotional stakes were heightened by the timing. William's announcement coincided with public engagements and charitable activities, making it impossible for the family to compartmentalize the issue privately. Every event, from official appearances to media interviews, was now viewed through the lens of the inheritance controversy. The storm transformed a personal family matter into a national and international talking point, where every gesture, glance, or comment could be interpreted as part of a larger narrative. Even humor and satire played a role in shaping perception. Late-night shows, cartoonists, and social media creators used irony, exaggeration, and parody to comment on the situation, highlighting both the absurdity and the gravity of the dispute. While these interpretations entertained, they also reinforced the cultural significance of the event, turning a financial decision into a multi-layered public spectacle that transcended traditional news reporting. And yet, despite the relentless coverage, key details remained obscured. The private conversations that led to William's decision, the internal deliberations about timing, and the specific terms of the inheritance were still unknown to the public. This lack of clarity fueled speculation, keeping the audience engaged and leaving an air of suspense that only intensified the drama. The media storm, therefore, was not simply a backdrop. It became a central character in the unfolding narrative. It magnified the stakes, shaped public perception, and ensured that Harry and Meghan's personal ordeal would be experienced by millions worldwide. It also created pressure on the palace, highlighting the delicate balance between private family decisions and the demands of global media scrutiny. And just when it seemed the story had reached its peak intensity, a new twist emerged. Hints of secret negotiations, leaked documents, and subtle indications that the inheritance controversy was far from resolved. The media storm, relentless and evolving, was preparing to reveal revelations that would shake public perception and deepen the rift in ways no one could yet imagine. But what came next would take the drama to an entirely new level, one that would leave the world questioning everything they thought they knew about loyalty, trust, and the royal family itself. As the media storm raged, a new dimension of the royal drama began to unfold: insider secrets and leaks. Information, previously confined to the hushed corridors of Buckingham Palace, began to seep into public consciousness, fueled by anonymous sources, former aides, and palace insiders eager to reveal the private workings of a family that has long been shrouded in secrecy. These revelations did more than inform. They ignited speculation, deepened the intrigue, and exposed a web of relationships, conflicts, and tensions that the public had only glimpsed in fragments. The first leaks painted a picture of a family already strained by years of differing priorities and public scrutiny. According to insiders, tensions between William and Harry had been simmering for years, exacerbated by the contrasting paths each brother had chosen. William, steeped in tradition and preparing to inherit the throne, embraced the role of public service, duty, and restraint. Harry, meanwhile, pursued a more independent path, balancing public engagements with personal passion projects and media interactions. Meghan's entrance into the family had amplified these dynamics, bringing new perspectives, expectations, and conflicts to the surface. Leaked communications, according to several sources, revealed private conversations where William expressed frustration over perceived disloyalty. Reports suggested that certain interviews and media appearances by Harry and Meghan had been seen as breaches of trust, publicly airing family matters that William believed should remain private. In this context, the inheritance cancellation was not merely punitive. It was a statement, a deliberate signal of boundaries, and a warning about the consequences of crossing them. Some leaks hinted at negotiations that had taken place behind the scenes before the announcement became public. Advisors reportedly met with legal teams, financial planners, and senior family members to assess options, risks, and potential fallout. These discussions, which had remained confidential, suggested that the decision to revoke the inheritance was carefully planned, rather than a spontaneous reaction. Yet the existence of leaks also indicated that even the palace's inner circle was not fully unified, with some members willing to share sensitive information with the press, further intensifying public scrutiny. Insiders described a palace environment charged with tension. Staff reportedly whispered in hallways, watched for reactions during public appearances, and managed a delicate balance between loyalty to family and compliance with media strategy. Some leaks portrayed an atmosphere of fear and anticipation, where every gesture could be misinterpreted, every statement scrutinized, and every interaction analyzed for hidden meaning. These accounts painted a vivid picture of a household where protocol, emotion, and strategy intersected in complex, often contradictory ways. The leaks also shed light on Harry and Meghan's perspective. Friends and confidants shared that the couple felt blindsided, both by the decision itself and the manner in which it became public knowledge. The revelation of the inheritance cancellation through media reports rather than private conversation magnified feelings of betrayal and humiliation. Insiders suggested that this breach of communication contributed as much to emotional strain as the loss of assets, highlighting the personal dimensions of the crisis.